Welcome to the I Am the Worst Parent Ever podcast with Nicole Merritt and Dr. Robert Zeitlin.
Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Robert. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good. I have a question, Nicole. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
It came from another conversation we had about mindfulness where just like there's no time in your day. I imagine that people watching that or reading or listening to us talk were thinking, how do you already do all the things you're doing? Where do you find the time to write, to blog, to talk with me, to do these podcasts? Like, where are you finding that time? How are you doing that?
Well, I mean, I have, a tentative schedule, like in my head, right? I plan to wake up around a certain time. Here's how the morning runs. And then I have my kind of plan that I follow for the rest of the day. I don't know. I mean, I know that I claim I don't have a lot of time, right? But then I feel like I see so many other people do more with their time than I do. And I'm like, apparently I should be getting more done.
So you don't see yourself as super productive?
I think I'm productive, but I think that there's things that I admittedly say I don't have time for, that I should and could involve in my day. I say I don't have time for exercise, right? And an exercise guru or a health nut or just somebody that has more common sense than me would say, all you need is 20 minutes. So don't tell me you don't have 20 minutes, because I'm sure there's 20 minutes that you spend on social media, checking your Facebook, where you could be doing exercises.
Right. In another conversation, we talked about sort of budgeting your sorries and like where are you going to spend them? But we talk about budgeting time like it's simple, but it's not that simple, is it?
No, I mean, in our house, I've described everything runs, well, I like it to run like a well-oiled machine. We have to schedule our showers. I'm a nighttime shower. I shower the night before. Because my husband showers in the morning. If we were both going to try to shower in the morning, I'd have to get up even earlier than I do. And then, what happens if one of the kids, is needing extra cuddles in the morning or whatever it is. So you have to have like a plan for kind of how things run, with allowing flexibility for, the occasional cough and fever and just need of mommy.
Right. I mean, I guess I think about it. There are things you can control and there are things you can't. And like you can manage your own time, right? We all spend probably a little more time on our phones or on social media or sort of browsing the internet or on email or whatever kind of like distracts us and pulls us away. And I guess we have control over that, although that's a level of control that I think is hard to like achieve. And then there's things that are completely out of your control. Like you don't know what the dogs are going to serve up that day or the kids. And so budgeting for both those variables would, I think, make it really hard to like have total control over your time. But somehow you're still able to sustain a regular writing schedule. We're able to have these conversations and you're able to do all the things you're able to do.
Yes, but I guess, so exercising, for example, right? It's something I want to do. But then I start getting overwhelmed when I think, okay, well, I can't go to the gym at 10 o'clock because then I'm not done till 11. And then I either have to walk around stinky or I have to shower and then, oh, there went my morning, So I think about wanting to add these things in and then it just becomes like this overwhelming, like it's whatever you call it, like there's an effect, like a domino effect of how it's going to screw up the rest of my day. So I can't allow that in.
Right.
So
I guess my big question then, I guess maybe the question I'm coming around to is self-care a luxury or is there some way to fit it in or prioritize it, make it a non-negotiable. I don't know.
Right. And I mean, I guess that there's people that schedule their self-care. Mommy's going to take that 40-minute shower. I'm usually showering really quickly with the door open or a baby monitor on, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not, sometimes we'll go for days with hairy legs because there's just no time to shave them. And then you get the people that are like, what do you mean you have no time to shave your legs? Like, take the time, but when I'm showering, let's say bedtime took a little longer that night, it's like, I don't want to take a long shower. I got to get to my computer so I can write. Like, I can't, I got to pick. You got to pick and choose. But I know it's important to make my own self-care a priority, or exercise a priority. That all that stuff, it doesn't seem like it's helping my family, but by helping me, it will ultimately help them.
Right. Right now, writing and creating and getting stuff out of your head is a non-negotiable. You can't, It's like being used to coffee, and if you don't have coffee, you get a headache. You need to do that for your own mental health, right? And the direct or the indirect effect on you and your family of you taking care of yourself, or any parent with young kids finding the time to take care of themselves as a necessity, as a non-negotiable. Like, I don't know if that's an equation. If we see that as a necessity and a non-negotiable, I think we see it more as a luxury.
Do you feel like when your kids were younger, like my kids' age, that you took as good of care of yourself as you're taking now? Or is that something that came to you later as they aged?
I think personally, I made it more of a priority, but I did less of a good job than I can now, with more time flexibility. But I'll not speak for my wife, but I think she was more in your position of like, how does she keep an ear out for the doorbell, listen to the baby monitor, and get in a shower, figure out how to shave her leg. Like, it's just, how do you do all that at once? And I don't think I was often confronted with that. Like, occasionally I was in a challenging situation where I'm like juggling the kid and trying to do the food shopping and doing this and that, but very occasionally. So I think I made it a higher priority because I knew, and that's who I am, that this was a non-negotiable. I needed to take care of myself. I needed to stay balanced because I started to feel differently. I started to feel effects on my mood. I started to feel different in my body if I wasn't getting regular exercise. I mean, that's something that I've just always done. So now I do it, and it's easier to do because I have more time to schedule it. Still not a ton of time, but a lot more time than when I had young kids.
See, and I think running at high speed and thriving on that is something that I've always done. So it's like it's my norm. And when things slow down, it's like, what is this? I'm not in my comfort zone. But just having that slower roll and more flexible nature, and just kind of being present. And it's okay if the kids go to bed a little later than you had planned, than the actual bedtime. It's okay if dinner gets on the table a little later than it did.
Is it?
Not for me, which is the problem.
I was going to say, it didn't sound like you weren't convincing me that was okay.
No, but I guess that's something I need to change about myself. I need to become okay with that stuff. I need to, again, and you and I have talked about this before. I think a schedule is important. I think my schedule is what makes so that we're never late for school, and everything happens the way it's supposed to, right? I have time to do this with you. But at the same time, we have to allow ourselves, if I ever am late for school, it's not the end of the world. It doesn't mean that the world's going to cave in. If I don't get something written, it'll get written at a later time. So it's having that kind of understanding with yourself, which sometimes I do and sometimes I don't.
Gotcha. So you're a little bit more of a lenient boss of yourself on your blog than you are head of the house.
Right. But I feel like there's got to be a little bit of boss in everybody, right? There has to be some sort of, I would venture to guess that most successful, and just, define that however you want, but most people in the world that are happy or doing something they love or making a lot of money, however it is you described, you define success for yourself, have some sort of boss mode, beast mode that they operate in 90% of the time.
It's funny because I think my version of boss mode or beast mode looks really different than yours, right? Like I loved when my kids were young, but the tension of trying to find time for myself was really hard. And now I feel relief that things have loosened up and I can do more of the things that I want to do. I keep myself just as busy. I'm doing too many things. I'm saying yes to too many things, but I'm picturing that in your head, the idea of having a slower time is like freaking you out. Like that you won't be running at optimal speed. Like you're better when you're juggling a million things.
Yeah. I mean, I do feel that about myself, and that's, not all mothers. That's kind of a me personality trait. I'm just weird and crazy like that. But, I mean, I do it. Like, so the thing is like scheduling, we're talking about like schedules and being busy, right? Most people would describe how I parent and the amount of activities we do as maybe over scheduling my children. Now, I don't think so. They're enjoying the things that they're doing. They're telling me that they want to partake. So that's number one, why we're doing it. And it's something that's benefiting them. They're learning life skills from doing it. So that's important as well. But do I allow enough time for freedom of just creative play and free play? I mean, I don't like coming to my home, with all this downtime, because then I see everything staring me in the face. The laundry, the dog, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. And so when I'm home, sometimes I have a hard time being present with them and playing with them because all my tasks are staring me in the face. So I'd rather get out away from those, and then I feel like I can be more present. I don't know. Does that make sense?
It does. I can imagine someone listening saying, oh, so her kids are an excuse for her to be out of the house and not see all this stuff.
Maybe.
Which I don't think is the worst thing, but like it's hard. Maybe there's some way to be at home and sort of be at peace with, and you do this, you put things to rest. You're like, this is good enough, I'll get the laundry done when I need to get it done, but all this stuff staring at you in the face, I can only imagine as we're having this conversation, you're fighting, like looking around and seeing like the laundry on the stairs and the dog hair on the couch. And
seriously, the laundry is folded right there. I can turn my computer and show you there's socks that are just strewn over there because for whatever reason, I lose everybody's socks and we have unmatches of everything. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I am a proponent of having a schedule and being busy when everybody enjoys it. My kids are never, complaining, I don't want to go there, I don't enjoy that. If they were, then we wouldn't be doing it. But they're enjoying it, they're learning, and I feel like I can be more present and attentive watching them do something they love and seeing them grow sometimes when we are more busy and scheduled and out of the house.
It's really interesting. I feel like it's kind of like you're being in the house or being out of the house with activities that are helping your kids grow and learn and become, balanced people. It's sort of like a metaphor for the emotional load, like all the stuff. When you look around and you see the laundry that's folded, but your eyes then go to all the socks and you're like, I know there's mismatches in there. I know I lost a couple, like, how do we do this? Like all that stuff that moms are carrying around all the time. And it doesn't just sit in your house in piles that remind you. It's on your phone. It's constantly, in the back of your head. And staying busy, I guess, is one way that we kind of like manage, if we're moving really fast, then we can kind of like deal with that idea. It comes in, it goes out, I have a place to put that, the theory that if you want something done, give it to a busy person.
Right. But then, you have, I worry, are we so scheduled and not spending enough time, at home or just outside in the yard, that I'm not allowing them to be creative, and just be with themselves and their imagination. And, but, I think you have, whether it's two sides, two sides that believe different things. Like, does boredom lead to, somebody being creative? Or do you fear boredom leads to destruction and bad behavior? Is that what you're trying to steer clear of? So it's always that question.
Yeah. I think, like you've said, a lot of times it kind of depends on your kid, but I definitely go to boredom breeds creativity, and sometimes conflict, and sometimes they get bored and sort of pick at each other. But there's a lot of, I feel like looking back as a kid, I was bored sometimes, but I end up learning things. It's not just from books and from stories and karate and sports, but I learned things like picking around in the yard. I mean, just like your son likes to go lizard hunting. There's a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of what I learned even about science that wasn't in science class. It was just seeing things in nature, being at camp and seeing, watching the water and how the wind worked, and seeing weather come in, and how boats worked and sailboats and like forces and all that stuff is like, it's all a learning opportunity. So I think boredom for me bred creativity, but even more just answered, it was a wealth of questions. It's like, now we have Google. Back then we had nature, we got to learn a lot of stuff.
Right. And I mean, I feel like being a busybody and, running around like Speedy Gonzalez, part of that is my nature. But I do think that it has evolved a bit. I have become more, flexible and finding time for myself or for direct connection with my kids. And I feel like it's just on your parenting journey, you just have to be able to go with the ebbs and the flows. And when my kids are in their teens, I'll probably have a different kind of schedule that I keep. And then as they get older and older, you have to be able to kind of go with the flow and find what works for you. And we have days. There's days where I know, like, I'll tell you, like, I can't take the dog hair on the rug anymore, right? So I have to tackle it that day. And so that day, my kids are not going to go do gym class or the bounce house or play outside or whatever the activity it is, because it's gotten to the point where it can't be like that. But you just have to be able to give and take each day. And I think your kids will benefit from that.
I also picture parents on the other side of the equation, and we haven't said this before, but if we have listeners or viewers who want to write in, like, we would love to hear, like, is the challenge, like, how busy do I keep it? Am I overscheduling? Or is the challenge, I think for some parents, like, how do I do any of it? Like, some of it just feels overwhelming to do anything but get the kids to school and then sort of make it till 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock or noon when I have to pick them up. Like, there may be parents who are trying to figure out how to do half of what you're doing, and there are parents who are probably doing twice of what you're doing and trying to figure out how to scale it down because they're making themselves and their kids crazy. But I'm curious to hear from anyone listening or viewing if they have a different take on it. And wherever you're viewing this, you can probably leave comments, but you can also email us if you want. We have a Gmail address called worstparentpod@gmail.com. worstparentpod@gmail.com. So love to hear other people's, how they're managing time, how they want to manage time, tricks they figured out, or what changes they'd want to make.
Right. And when I worked full time, things were different. When I worked full time for a foster care agency and I would, pick up my daughter at between 5 and 6 o'clock, all I wanted to do, now granted, she was younger at the time, so there's not too many activities she could have done, but all I wanted to do was go home and snuggle with her and have dinner and get her to bed, because at that time, she needed that amount of sleep. But yeah, it looks different for everybody. And I think it depends on your work schedule. It depends on how old your children are, how many children you have. So it's not a one size fits all for everybody.
Right. And how much energy you have and how exhausting your work is and how much your partner or spouse or whoever's helping you raise your kids is pitching in. And there's a lot of factors and how exhausting your kids are. I mean, I have some parents that say, I could do all this, with the first kid and the second kid, but the third one, is either a tipping point or they're a different kind of kid. And so we're talking about a different situation.
Right. And that's when I think, you if you have a village, you enlist them to help you. On Monday, if your village helps you out and you get the self-care you need on Monday after work or whenever it is, then Tuesday you are present with your child, whether it's an activity in your home with just you or it's something scheduled outside. You find a way to make it work for everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah,
All
this
right.
is a great conversation.
Great conversation. I look forward to hearing what other people have to say too.
Yes, me too.
All right, talk soon.
Thank you for listening to the I Am the Worst Parent Ever podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss an episode.